This video will show you how to make a contact sheet in Photoshop. It's really easy and more importantly, it's useful. So what's a contact sheet? Contact sheets go way back in photography, pre-digital, before you were born kind of photography probably. Because it took a lot of time and it was expensive to make prints in a darkroom, photographers figured out a way to print all their film negatives in positive form on a single sheet or print like this. That way they could look at 15 or 20 or more shots on the same page and decide which ones were good enough to develop further. That's the purpose of a contact sheet. To make the contact sheet, you first put the photos that you want to use into the same folder. It's a little easier to do it this way, have them in a folder first. So you can see I've got a folder here called Zuma on my desktop. I've got, I think, about 18 photos in that folder, and those are the ones I'm going to use for the contact sheet. Next, launch Photoshop. I've already got Photoshop started, so let me bring it up here. Now, you don't even have to go into it and make a new file. Just here from the launch page, you can go up to File and Automate, and then come down to Contact Sheet. Okay, so let's look at the contact sheet settings. Here in the first panel, the source images, this is where if you have them in a folder, you would just leave, that's the default setting. If you have them scattered around in different places, then you need to say, go to files, and then you'll load them one by one. But that's why this is easier to do it, put them in a folder first. Next is the size of the document that you want. By default, it's 8 by 10, which is a large print size for photos. You can make that a little bigger if you want, say 8.5 by 11, if you think you might print it on just regular letter paper, whatever you want here. The resolution is set here by default at 300. Now, usually for working on screens, we're going to set things at 72. However, there might be a good reason to keep this at 300, which I'm going to do here. And that's because even if you're looking at this on a screen, these images are going to be quite small, and you are likely to have to kind of zoom in and out to get a good look at them. And at 72, they're going to look quite pixelated. So let's go ahead and leave this at 300 pixels per inch on the resolution. The RGB color 8-bit, that's fine. This box here, flatten all layers, that's kind of an important one. If you want to not be able to do any editing to your contact sheet after you make it, that's fine. Go ahead and say flatten all layers and you'll have a smaller file. If, however, you want to maybe change the captions, and in most cases your captions on your photos are just kind of the image number, which isn't too meaningful for most of us. So if you think you might want to write your own captions or titles or rank your pictures or something, uncheck this part that says flatten all layers. And what that will do is that will bring in each photo in its own layer, and then each title is an editable text layer. Then the next panel here deals with kind of how the page is organized. So you've got your choice for how many rows and how many columns you want that to be. If you want them to, in the order to be like 1, 2, 3 going across, or 1, 2, 3 going down, whichever makes the most sense to you. Change that to across. Auto spacing, this is usually fine. Rotate for best fit. So that's, if you check that, what that's going to do is it will turn your vertical pictures horizontal so that every picture in the row is the same size. That will give you slightly bigger pictures, but I think it's a little harder to view them, so I usually leave this unchecked. And then file name as caption, you can change your whatever font you want to be there. Typically you want to make sure you keep your file names on one line, because that will kind of mess up your spacing of your rows. So I usually use something that's fairly small and fairly condensed, so that I can get my caption or title of the photo in as small a space as possible. Okay, when you've got all the settings the way you want them, you click OK. and Photoshop will go out and start making, kind of importing these photos one by one. This can take a bit of time, particularly if you've got a lot of photos and they're large images. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video now because this might take a minute or two for Photoshop to get all these photos in here. Okay, Photoshop's finished bringing in all the image, and you only see 3 here. And that's because I had a total of 18 photos, and I set up my page size to be 3 columns, or yeah, 3 columns and 5 rows. So it put the first 15 photos on this page, and it put the last 3 onto a second page. So that's kind of how that works. You can also look down here in the layers panel, and you can see that each photo is its own layer, and each title or each file name is its own layer as well. And that's where, if you want to be able to kind of reorder your photos or kind of rank them or something like that, or write a different title, that's what you would do here. So let me zoom in a little bit. And if we want to, say, rank this one, we simply make sure we're working on that text layer, the IMG 1618 JPEG, and then using our text tool, if I click in here, that becomes an editable field. And so I could change it to whatever I want. Maybe I want to rank the photos 1 through 18. Maybe I want to just say that's a really adorable puppy or something. And there you go. To save your files then, I'd recommend saving it both as a Photoshop file and then as a JPEG for sharing. So I'll save this contact sheet first. Go to File, Save. By default, it's going to put the contact sheet back in the folder that the photos came from. That makes sense. So the first one would be to save as a Photoshop file. Note I've got about a 24 megabyte file size. That's not too bad for a lot of different layers. And then I will also save as save as a JPEG, and that would be the one that you would share with other people or upload to Titanium. That's contact sheet 2. In this case, this is the main one, so I'll save it as well. There's contact sheet 1. And then save it as a JPEG. Oops. And there you see your contact sheets. And that's it. Pretty easy.